Oh, I got it. Okay. 3 for 3 so far. Okay. So we finished the parak tonight, Bez Hashem, and then we start the last parak in Bava Kamma. We're on Kuf Yud on Beis by the 2 dots. Right? Nosan es a kesef la'anshi mishmor. Right, so we said, again, the whole story we're talking about is the ger. You stole money from the ger dies, no yarshim, so the Kehanim become the yarshim, and he's got to bring it up. He's got to bring the stolen money up to that was yesterday's machlokes, whether he brings it up to the Beis Hamikdash or he could just give it to a kohen. Right? Fine. So we said that if he gives the money to the Anshe Mishmar, right? And then he died, meaning the crook died, the Yisrael, who was a crook, he died, so the kids don't get the money. Yeah. Yeah, so that's so Amar Abaye, Shmami, what do we hear from this? So basically, so I'm sorry, and then the last part of the Gemara was that that the money stays there, but the animal has to go out to pasture, right? Yirachi stuff, because there's no more tshuva here, right? There's no more tshuva, right? So Amar Abaye. So Abaye says Shmami no kesef mechaper mechza. So it must be that the money that he gave gives him half a kapara, right? Meaning one work. Basically, what he's saying is that one works without the other. Yeah, because he gave half the money, but the carbon doesn't get brought. So why don't we say, there's no kapara? No, he did half. Right? Because if it's not mechaper, hava mina mahadal yoshim. Because if it's not mechaper, so then give the money back to the yoshim. It didn't. If he's not getting any kapara out of this, so why don't the yoshim take back the money? Right? My timer. And what's the reason? Because he didn't give the money to the kohen for with the das that you just give it to him. Meaning the only reason why this crook was giving the money to the kohen is because he gets a kapara. So it must be that he gets a kapara, because if he didn't get a kapara, right? If he didn't get a kapara, then the money should go back to the crook's kids. Oh, you're going to say, well, why should it go back to the crook's kids? So the lumdus for that would be because he only gave it on the das. He only gave it to the ganim on the das that he gets a kapara. If he wasn't getting a kapara, then he didn't plan on giving the money. Right? It comes out, it's interesting that we're saying this. Can you give money to somebody with an intention for it to do something, and if what was intended to happen didn't happen, then you take your money back. Right? That's basically what the Gemara is saying. It comes into because there's an ad in the paper, and guys have been asking. BMG came out because for the Shloshim of Ramatis Yo, they came out that anybody that brings a smartphone on the yeshiva's campus, including the parking lots, is not allowed to learn in yeshiva. They're not allowed to eat yeshiva. They're not allowed to take a kola check, and nothing like that. No smartphone whatsoever. So do they have a right? Do they have a right to say that? Meaning, you gave me a spot in Besmedish. You're gonna say take it back because I'm not doing epis something else. So I think this Gemara.
It means they can never change the rules?
No, but they could say, yeah, we're giving you you could say, what do you mean? You gave me a kola check, right? And now I'm not listening.
Saying, so you're saying that now they can never change, just because they give you a kola check, because they accepted you to kolel, they can't change the rules? They could change the rules if they want.
No, but can they say that it's Geneva? I don't know if they write Geneva, but some yeshivas do tell the guys if they have a smartphone or a flip phone or whatever phone, they say they're Ganovim. You're paying tuition. Can you say it's a Ganovim? So maybe from this Gemara, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe from this Gemara, you could say, listen, I gave you this money on expecting to meet certain expectations. And if you don't do it, then the money was not given to you. Then you can't keep it. right? Meaning here, the guy's giving the money to the Kehanim. He's giving the money to the Kehanim based on the assumption that he is going to have at least a half of Mechila. Now he doesn't get the Mechila. Okay, so then give me back my money. And he's not alive, so good, his Yarshim will take.
Is that the Kohen's fault?
Not the Kohen's fault, but it's not the Kohen's fault. But he could just say, "I only gave the money to you, because I'm supposed to get mechila." Right? Okay, but that's what the Gemara is saying. So the Gemara has three kashas now on this. So the din by a chatas whose owner dies, right? So you kill it. You don't kill it for your dayim. It's a very interesting halacha that if the owner of a guy makes it something into a chatas, he makes makdish an animal to be a chatas, and then he dies. So what are you gonna do with that? So what they do is they put it into a room and they don't feed it till it dies. Right? So chatas shemesu baleh teipa kuchulin. It should go out to chulin. Meaning, why do you have to do this for? He didn't separate the chatas. The only reason why he separated the chatas is that he should get a kapara. Now that he died, he can't get a kapara. Good, so his chatas should revert back. So the Gemara says, "Amri chatas shemesu baleh hilchos l'gemir l'eretz halach l'mashem b'sinai." The lemisa also that it has to go lemisa. Meaning theoretically you'd be right, but there's a halach l'mashem b'sinai. Another kasha, similar kasha. Elamiata asham shemesu baleh, a carbon asham whose owners die. Right, so there, leipuk l'chulin should also go out to chulin. Right, so an asham doesn't die. It gets put out to like we said on Amud Aleph, you put it out yirachi stuff. You put it out until it gets a mum, then you sell it. So why can you say the same thing? It should go out to chulin. So we say asham nami hilchos gemira. Let's also look at Moshe Sinai. Kol shebechatas mesa ba'asham roya. Anytime you have a situation where if it was a chatas, we'd let the animal die. Then by asham you put it out to graze. Third kasha. So you have a yavama. She was married to a guy, never had kids, and the guy died, and then there's the brother is a mukashrin, so she doesn't want to marry him. He's disgusting. So tepuk beloy chalitza, she should go out without chalitza, meaning because she needs chalitza if she doesn't want to marry the guy. She was not mekadosh herself that she's going to be stuck with a brother-in-law who's disgusting. Right now, kitcha atzma when? How long ago was she mekadosh herself? Now you're saying that her marriage 30 years ago was on a tanai that she's not going to have to marry her brother-in-law who's a mukashchin. Right? So Tosfos here says he's talking about only where the Yavama happened from engagement, from Erison. Didn't happen from the Suin. Because who has in their head when they get married, right? I mean, there's all sorts of sfeikus people have, especially nowadays with getting married. One of those sfeikus is not that they're getting married and maybe they're going to have to get chalitza or yibum. They're going to have to get yibum from a brother-in-law who's a mukashchit. I don't think that's really crossing anybody's minds, right?
What if he wasn't even born?
What? Right, or it could be right. It could be even he wasn't even born yet. Yeah, it's a good point. So Tosfos says it can't be taken from Nesuin, right? Because Nesuin is Vade, she's married. That's not going to say, but from Erison, she's not fully committed yet. So Mamela, we're going to say that the commitment is not for anything specific. Right, anyway, so that's the kasha. So Hasam Anan Sadi, right? We had this rule quite a few times on Tamar Aleph now. Hasam Anan Sadi, the Meinach Nechele Becholdu. We know that a woman is willing to marry anything. Kiresh Lakish, Damar Resh Lakish, Tav Lamet of Tandum, and Lamet of Armalu. Right, Resh Lakish says that it's better to sit with two people than to sit alone. Right, that's the rule that women have. A woman is gonna be happy to be married to anything, as opposed to staying alone, and so that's why she's never gonna say, "Oh, I would never have gotten married because perhaps my future brother-in-law would be a mukashchin, and maybe my husband's going to die without kids, etc. It don't make a difference to her. She would still get married, even if she knew that that would happen. Right? Which we already said from Rav Nebenzahl. We already said from Rav Nebenzahl that this mitzias has changed. Right? The mitzias changed, and women are not like that anymore, and they will be very picky about who they marry. Right? So I don't know exactly when the mitzias changed, but that's what Rav Nebenzahl says. Okay, bye.
Must have changed after 34 years ago, or 35 years ago, because I think my wife was happy to just get me.
Okay, Rachman. If you say so yourself, you're following the Shari Tshuva, you're humbling yourself. Yeah. All right. Nothing as a kesef Yahairav. Right. So we said that there were two mishmars. There was the Yahairav mishmar. They were the lead off mishmar. Right. And the next mishmar was what was the name? Yedaya. Right. So there's Yahairav and Yedaya. So we said that really the din is that you're supposed to give the money first and then the korban asham. And what happens if they did it? They gave the asham to Yahairav and they gave the money to Yedaya, which means that they really did the wrong thing. So here we have a machlokes about this. Tan Rabbanan, 3 lines down. Nasan asham Yahairav, the kesef Yedaya. Let's say they gave the korban asham to Yahairav, which was wrong because they're giving the korban asham before the money. The kesef Yedaya, and the money they give to Yedaya. Yachse kesef Eitzel asham. You give the kesef to the asham, meaning the money. Meaning you have two options now here. You have one mishmar that got the korban asham, and you have one mishmar that got the money. So do review this. Rav Yehuda holds that you take the money and you give it to the asham, meaning Yedaya has to give the money to Yahairav. The opposite. Yachzer asham Eitzel kesef. No, Yahairav has to go give the korban to Yedaya. The Gemara says, "Hey, what's the case? If it's talking about when you gave the korban asham to Yahairav during the mishmar of Yahairav, the kesef Yedaya b'mishmar to Yedaya, and the kesef Yedaya and the mishmar of Yedaya, and says zacha b'shaloi, and says zacha b'shaloi. What's the problem? Each one got what they're supposed to, right? I mean, it was out of order, but one mishmar got one, and one mishmar got the other one, right? But so really the Rabbanon, Rashi says the Rabbanon who hold that you have to give it to Yedaya, it makes sense, right? Because Yahairav didn't they took the korban asham first. They shouldn't have, so they really have to give it to Yedaya. But Rav Yehuda, what's Pshan Rav Yehuda? Right? Yedaya, what did they do wrong? They took money. So why should you take? And Rav Yehuda says that you take the money, you give it to the Yahairav. Why should you do that? They didn't do anything wrong. So Rava says, "How my skin?" This is what we're talking about. The Yav Asham li Yahairav b'mishmartoi divi Yahairav. It's talking about where they gave an Asham to Yahairav during the mishmar of Yahairav. The kesef li Yedaya b'mishmartoi di Yahairav. They gave the money to Yedaya still during the mishmar of Yahairav. Meaning, for whatever reason, this guy wanted the money to go to the Yahairav people, to the Yedaya people, but he didn't want to stick around till after Shabbos to wait to give it to them when their mishmar was on. So what he did is he came and he brought the asham and he gave it to Yahairav. And then on Friday, let's say, I'm just making this up, on Friday, he went and gave the cash, unter and tish, to Yedaya, even though it was during the mishmar of Yahairav. So that's not right. So Yehuda Sover Kivan the La Mishmeres to Yedaya, since it was not the Mishmeres of Yedaya, they should not have taken the money. So the Yedaya continually, we give a knas to Yedaya, and therefore Hilkov Yasu Kesef Eitzel Asham. Therefore you got to take the Kesef and put it to the Asham, to Yahairav. Rabbanan Sabri Shalai Kedinhu of Bnei Yahairav, the Kivu Asham Mikame Kesef. The Bnei Yahairav did something wrong. They should not have accepted this korban When the guy came to them, to Yehoram, and said, I stole from a ger, and he died. I got to bring you guys a carbon and money. So he says, here's the carbon. The Yehoram should have told him, sir, you got to give the money first. They didn't do that. Therefore, we make them have a knas. And they have to give the asham to the kesef, to the Yedaya people. Right? So it's just a matter of who do we look at did the wrong thing. Right? Rabbi Yehuda holds that the Yedaya people did the wrong thing because they shouldn't have taken the money during the mishmar of the Yehorav. And the Chachamim hold the Yehorav people did the wrong thing because they should never accepted the carbon asham in the first place without the money. Fine. So Tanya, Amar Rav, Amar Rebbe. The different Rabbi Yehuda in Kadmon b'nei Yehorav b'kriva was asham. According to Rabbi Yehuda, let's say the b'nei again. Rabbi Yehuda holds that the kesef has to be given from the Yedaya to the Yehorav. So let's say they were already makar of the carbon asham. So Yasa v'yevi asham acher. Then the Ganav has to bring another carbon asham. The Yakrveo b'nei Yedaya, and in that case, the b'nei Yedaya bring it. The Zachu halalu b'masha b'yadam, and the Yehorav people get to keep what's in their hands, right? So here it's already one step further. Let's say because we were assuming that the Yehoravs didn't bring the carbon, so therefore they have to give the carbon to the Yedayas. But let's say they did bring the carbon. So now he's saying is that the crook has to bring another carbon. The Bnei Yedaya do that, keep it, be mark of that, and the Bnei Yehorav get to keep the skin and the meat of the first carbon. So Amri Lamai Chazi Asham Pasalu. What is it Chazi?
It's kind of a problem because according to Rabbi Elazar, that Asham was that Asham brought Lishma, or it sounds like the Asham's got a problem.
The Asham is
it's only it doesn't have to be Lishma, but it's still it sounds like it's got a problem in it. So what are they? They're keeping a korban that. What are they going to be able to do with it?
Right. That's what the Gemara is asking, isn't it? Amri Lamai Chazi Asham Pasal hooks and Asham Pasal.
One more line, I would have been there.
Yeah. Right. Okay. It's better to be mechaven than not. Right. So what are you doing with this asham? So Amarava la'ayra yanachanami. There's nothing to do with the meat because it's a pasul carbon, but you still have the skin. Fine. Tanya Amar Rebbe. L'divrei Rabbi Yehuda im kayim asham. If the asham is around, yachser asham eitzel kesef. Then you bring the asham to the kesef, right? Meaning the Yehorav gives it to Yedaya. So the Gemara asks, "But Rabbi Yehuda yachser kesef eitzel asham is like, what are you saying? You're saying the opposite of what we said. We said that Rabbi Yehuda holds that the money goes back to the Yehoravs. So Gemara answers, what happened was that Yehorav's mishmar was over, and they never asked Yedaya for the money. Meaning, again, we're talking about a case where during the Yehorav's mishmar, this crook went and gave the money to the Yedayas. So now the Yehoravs should have gone to the Yedayas saying, where's our money? That comes together with this asham. They didn't do it. Right? If they didn't do that, then that means that they were Michael, right? And therefore the Yedayas will keep the money. Not only that, but the Yehoravs have to give them the carbon asham also. If the asham is still around, then you put the kesef by the asham. So again, this is Rebbe saying a chiddush. So the Gemara asks, "Pshita hachi islay." That's exactly what Rabbi Yehuda said. Right? It's interesting. Why didn't the Gemara just say pshita? The Gemara didn't normally just says pshita. Like, what are you saying? And here it says pshita hachi islay. I don't know why the Gemara adds those words. So the Gemara answers, "How am I asking?" Because the nafik mishmartam dahani v'dahani. It's talking about where the mishmar was over for the Yehoravs and the Yedayas, for loy tavu. And they didn't. Neither one of them opened their mouths, right? So Mamela, now we have something stuck here because we have the carbon wasn't brought, and we don't know who to give the money to. It's not the same. Maybe we can say that they were moichel each other, and Memela Yehorav keeps the asham, and Yedaya keeps the money. Right? I guess Yehorav will bring the asham on its next round of mishmar. Kamashmalan damrinan kivan the light tabi, since they did not ask for it. Therefore, everything resets and goes back to the way it was. Okay, so those are those scenarios. Then the Mishnah continues. So we said that you cannot bring the carbon first before you bring the money, right? Because we said that if somebody brings the money, right? The one who brings the money is doing it correctly first. The one who brings the money first is doing it correctly. The one who brings the carbon first is doing it incorrectly. Okay, how do we know this? So we know immediately. Right? It says the asham that's going to return to Hashem, besides for the ela kippurim asher yichubar by. So we're saying, like we said yesterday, asham means money. The kesef bereisha. So we see that kesef comes first. That's mentioned in the parsha first, and that's what it is. So Amar Humar Rabbanan Rava. So the Rabbanan said to Rava Elamayata, when it says milvad oilas haboiker, asher lo oilas hatamid, right? Besides what oilas haboiker. So anytime, meaning again, the Gemara is saying that the word milvad tells you that whatever was mentioned in the pasuk came first. So if that's the case, so it says milvad oilas haboiker. Tachanami, bechlal de musafin bereisha. You're going to say that you bring the carbon musaf first, right? Meaning because that is going through the psukim, and then it says milvad the oilas the carbon oil, the carbon topic. But Tani Minaishli, Dover Kardinal the Talmud Shel Shachar. How do you know that nothing could be brought before the Talmud Shel Shachar? Tamalemi va'arach aleh ha'oila, and you set up on it the oila. V'amarava ha'oila oila rishayna. It means that the oila goes first. So the oilas tamid that you bring every day has to be the first carbon. So how could it be that the pasuk is mashma that you bring the carbon musa before the oilas tamid? I learned it from a different pasuk. It says that it's going to give him kapara, and he still doesn't have the kapara, right? Meaning, he didn't get the kapara from the animal when the money has to be given back. So it's a different source. Fine, nothing like a karen. So he said, the Mishnah continued. If the crook gave the kohanim the keren, meaning the principal, but he didn't give the fifth, so it still can't get a kapara, meaning the chaimish is not ma'akiv on the kapara. So the Rabbanan zaminayin she'im hevi me'ilasa v'loy hevi ashamay. This is talking about when somebody's over on me'ilah. So when you're over on me'ilah, that means you're using the hektish b'shaygig, right? So using hektish b'shaygig, so you have to bring a carbon me'ilah and a carbon asham and add a fifth. Welcome to Gershon. Minayin shem hevi milasa v'lo hevi ashama, or ashama v'lo hevi milasa shelo yatsa. You need both in order to be yatsa. Tamaloymar ve'ela asham v'nislach loy. It says with the aisle of the asham, with the ram of the asham, and it's going to be a slicha for him, right? So you see from the word for el ha'asham, right, that it's the aisle together with the asham. Okay, so minayin shem hevi ashamay at shaloi hevi milasa shaloi yatzav. And how do you know the other way around? How do you know if you bring the asham without the me'ilah, you're not yatzav? Tamalomer be'el ha'asham. It says be'el ha'asham. Ha'asham b'kvar. That means that it was already an asham, meaning you already brought the asham. Yachol kishem sha'ayil ba'asham ma'akvim. So you think, okay, the same way you need to bring the carbon aisle, not the carbon aisle, the aisle for the me'ilah, and the carbon asham, you think that it's ma'akiv, kachaymish ma'akiv. So too, if he didn't add a fifth, right, he has to add a fifth onto the payment. So then you think that also should be ma'akiv. Tamaloimer. The alosham and isachloi. Ayil v'osham ma'akvim behektish. The ayil and the osham are ma'akiv when somebody benefited from hektish. Vein chaimish ma'akiv. Chaimish is not ma'akiv. Right. So the karbonas are ma'akiv, not the headed fifth. The yom and hektish mehedit. And then the Gemara finishes off. It says we can learn out hektish from hedyet, meaning hedyet is by the geneva, and hektish is obviously the karbonas. But hedyet me hektish, we could also learn out hedyet from hektish, right? Meaning we can have a full circle. Hektish me hedyet, we can learn out hektish from hedyet ma asham the hasam karen, just like by asham, right? There's karen, af asham the hacha. Karen. It means that you have to pay Karen and not chaimish. V'hedyin mehektish, and we learn on hegdim mehektish. Mehektish ain't chaimish ma'akiv. Just like by hektish, chaimish is not ma'akiv. Hedyin nami ain't chaimish ma'akiv. So by hedyin too tells you that it's not ma'akiv. Right? Okay, so that's a little bit of hektish over there. Paratomia. Hadron Allah hagoyz aleitzim. All right. Next pair. L'chaim. Nobody's on with the l'chaim.
I don't know, like, let's go back and steal some wood.
No, you're all finished.
Okay, next parak. Last
Yeah, you
one.
said Gershon is there by you?
No.
Oh, I thought you said welcome Gershon. I heard the door open.
No. He just came on. That's all. Fine. So, Zok the new parak. Hagoizel. This stomach is actually not so easy. Hagoizel. So somebody who steals. That seems to be the theme, right? So he steals the food. Umaychal es benoi, and he feeds the food to his kids. Or v'heniach l'fneim. Here Rashi says the vav doesn't mean and, it means or. Or they didn't eat it. He just put it down in front of them. Peturim milashalim. They are potter to pay. They don't have to pay for it. Right? It's their father's issue. He gave them stolen property, and then they're not achrayis. But if the thing that the father gave them has achrayis, which means that it's land, because land has achrayis, then then they have to give it back. Right? So again, the Mishnah is really saying a couple of things. First, if a father steals and he feeds his kids, or he gives his kids, then he's potter to pay. We'll see in the Gemara whether that thing is still in existence or not. But if it's something with achrayis, like he stole land and he gave it to his kids, then his kids do have to give it back. Fine. So Zog the Gemara, Amar Rav Chisda, Gezel v'loy nisiyashu bailam. If somebody stole and the bailam were not miyayish, right? They didn't give up on it. And then somebody came and stole it from the ganav and ate it. So now who can the guy that got stolen from go after? Right? So Rav Chisda says, Rotzim mizeh goiva, Rotzim mizeh goiva. If he wants, he can collect from this one. If he wants, he can collect from this one, my timer. Right? So kol Kamma the loy nisiyashu abaylim. Any time that the bailim were not meyayish, it's considered in the original Baal's rishus. So since, meaning this thing could have been stolen from the guy 10 years ago. If he didn't give up on getting this thing back, then wherever it is, it's still considered in the rishus of the guy who got stolen from, and therefore he can go after anybody. He can either go after the crook, or he can go after the people that took it from the crook. Fine. So the Gemara asks, Tanan, if somebody steals and then he feeds it to his kids, or he puts it in front of them, they're potter from paying, right? Which is our Mishnah. So why they potter from paying? If you go like what Rav Chisda said, if the guy that was stolen from was not miyayish, then they have to give it back. So the Gemara says, "Tiyufta de Rav Chisda." It's a kasha Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda, Kitanya hi la'achar yiyush. Right, a pasha the teretz. Our Mishnah saw about la'achar yiyush and a chanami. If it was before yiyush, then they'd have to give it back. Our Mishnah saw about la'achar yiyush. So if it's la'achar yiyush, meaning when the guy gave up after finding it, then the kids don't have to give back the stolen property. Right? So you might ask yourself, so is that right? These kids are walking around with the Yerusha that their father stole. So we're going to see that if it becomes a public thing, then it's a problem. Then they have to give it back. It's covered for their father. So then we said the other option was is that the Ganav put it in front of his kids. They have cut it from paying. The rishus of a yoresh is like the rishus of a lekeach, meaning normally when something goes into somebody else's rishus, it's called a shina rishus, and there's some form of kinyan of that, right? So the question is there a shina rishus by a yerusha, right? So if we're saying here that when these kids yarshin their father, they don't have to pay it back. So essentially, what we're saying is a shina rishus is a rishina of the rishus by a yerusha is like a purchase. And Rava Amar no, Rava disagrees. Rishus yarish lavka rishus lekayatami. It's not like the rishus. Okay, it's not like a shina rishus. Okay, so then why don't they have to return it? It's somewhere where they ate it. Enochanami, if they didn't eat it, right, then you'd have to give it back. But since they ate it, you have to give it back. Right? I'm sorry. Since they ate it, you don't have to give it back. If they didn't eat it, then they'd have to give it back. So when I asked, some of the Ketani is safer. This that we say in the Sefer, that if there's a chrayas, they're chayav to pay. Michlal, the Reisha b'gezela kiyem and saskina. We're talking about in the Reisha where the gezela is around. Right? Again, when it says in the Sefer that if it's a chrayas, which we said means if it's fields, that the guy yarshin the field, the kids yarshin the field, they have to give it back. So we see from the Reisha that we're talking about where the gazelle is around. And we just got finished saying that Rava says that talking about where the gazelle is not around. Rava says, this is what it's saying. If the father left them an achrayas of nechasim, then they're chayiv to pay. Right? Meaning, it's not that the father left them the field and that's what he stole. No. He could have stolen a chveis. He could have stolen a car. But if the father gave a Yerusha over of karka, then that karka is meshubed to give it back to the guy it was stolen from. Right? So what I asked, Masni la Rebbe with Reb Shimon Brei, but Rebbe taught Reb Shimon his son, Loi dover sheyesh b'achrayas mamish. It doesn't mean that it's something that actually has achrayas. Ela afilu parah b'charish, but it could even be that the father stole a parah, right? That you plow with it, or a donkey, and that you follow behind it. That they're chayav to give back because of kavod avim, right? Because people are, if it's something tangible, right? Meaning because otherwise people are going to walk around and say, oh, you see that cow? That's the fathers who stole it from somebody else, and they get to keep it because there's a legal loophole. So whatever it is, so Rebbe said to Reb Shimon that that's what we're talking about. So how could it be that Rava says that we're talking about if the guy has karka? So Elam Rava, so Rava says a different shot. When he says when I'm going to die, Reb Aishi is going to come out to be malavim me. Right? Why? What is Reb Aishi going to have with Rava? The Tritz Namasnisin Kavasei, because I answered up Mishnayos like him. Right? Because he's going to answer up this Mishnah like Rav Shia. Taisa says another case. Right? Coming up in Ezel Neshach. Anyways, the Tani Rav Shia, because Rav Shia said, Hagoizel Michael is Banov, somebody who steals. and then he feeds it to his kids. Peturim l'shalom, they're potter from paying. And if the father left it in front of them for a Yerusha, Gazela kayemis, if the gazela is around, Chayav, they have to give it back. Ain't gazela kayemis, if the gazela is not around, Peturim, they're potter. Right? And then if the father left them and achrayas on nechasim, Chayav and l'shalom, that they're chayav to pay. So you see that if the father left an achrayas nechasim, right, meaning land, right? Rashi says karka shaloi, then they're chayav to give it back. So you see that we have a brisa that says that Rava is going with Rav Oishia, and Rava doesn't have to go like Rebbe. We asked the kasha on Rava from Rebbe's interpretation of the Mishnah. He says that's fine. I go with Rav Oishia. Fine. Then the Gemara says Amar Mar. Eina gazela kayemis peturin. If the gazela is not around, then they're potter from giving it back. Name it to have it to the Rav Chisda. Let's say this is a kasha on Rav Chisda, right? Because Rav Chisda said that when the gazela, then if a guy ate some gazela, meaning a guy stole it from the ganav and ate some of it, Rav Chisda said that the owner can collect from either one. Here, it says they're potter. So the kasha Rav Chisda. Now, I was talking about after years. Right? That's going to be the go-to teretz. If anything doesn't fit, he says, "Oh, that was after years, so the guy gave up on it. So it's not a problem." Fine. Then Omar Mar, if the gazela is around, they have to pay. Name they have a tiyufta the Rami Bar Chama. Why do we say that this is a kasha on Rami Bar Chama? Right? Because Rami Bar Chama said that the rishus is yoirish, rishus lekeach, and it's considered a shini rishus. So then why do they have to pay? If it's a shini rishus, they shouldn't have to pay. Now, lifnei years. We're talking about 4 years. Okay, let's just finish a few more lines because tomorrow's Thursday. It's a long daf, and Friday is also a long daf. Yeah, fine. Similar Gemara. So again, before we said that Rami Bar Chama said that once there's a Yerusha, that's considered a Shina Rishus, and it's considered a total Kinyan, and the people, the Yarshim, don't have to pay back this, that the father was a crook. So Rav Ada bar Ava says it on a different subject. If the father left him ribbis money, meaning the father took ribbis. He lent somebody money and took back ribbis. Now the father died. So now these kids are yarshining ribbis. Do they have to give it back? So Afa Pisha Yadin change of ribbis. Even if the kids know that the father lent the ribbis, Ein Chayam and Lahafsa, they're not mechuyev to give it back. Right? The rishus of the Yairish is like the rishus of the Lekeach, right? That's what we said. Mamela is considered, it's no different than if a guy sells something to somebody who lends beribis, right? So he doesn't have to give back the money because it's a shina thing. It's a shina. So same thing if a guy's yashin it. Remember we said that Maisa with Reb Chaim Kanievsky, where he was supposed to get a ride with a guy in a brand new car, and the car didn't start. So Reb Chaim asked if he lends beribis. So the guy said he doesn't, but his partner does. So Mamela, fakir from this Gemara. Fakir from this Gemara. Right? But the Chayra. Either way, but that's what Rabbi Bar Chama said is din. So Rabbi Amar, no, it's not a raya. The rishus of a Yairish is not like rishus lekeach. Shani Yochanan here is different. Damar Kra al tikach meitay neshech v'tarbis. Don't take from him neshech and tarbis. Ahadar leki hechi b'nochi b'hadach. Give him back the ribis so that you can live with each other, meaning peacefully. The Didei Kamazul Rachman, the Torah warned him to return the ribis because he's the one that took the ribis, so give it back. The Brei Loy Mazul Rachman, but to his kid, he's not Mazur him. Fine. So Mandamasi. So we have two versions of this Rami Bar Chama, that Yerusha is the same thing as a Lakicha. We have one going on when the father was a crook, and we have one going on when the father sold beribis. Right, and both of those, Rami Bar Chama says they don't have to give back the money because it's considered like a shinoi of, they consider like purchases, even though they just yash. So man the masila brisa. So the one that says Rami Bar Chama is going on the brisa. So kol shekain amas nisim for sure goes on our Mishnah, because otherwise you don't really say pshat. What else? How else are you saying pshat in the Mishnah? That they don't have to give it back if there was yish and a shini rishus. But man the masila amas nisim. But the one that says Rami Bar Chama says it on the Mishnah that when the father's a crook, the kids and the kids yarshin, it's considered a different rishus. Then it works on the Mishnah of a Brisa, but on the Brisa, maybe Rami Bar Chama won't work because Rami Bar Chama karava masila. Maybe Rami Bar Chama really would go like Rava, which is that there's a pasuk says that you have to the one who lent the ribis has to give it back so that everybody will get along with each other, but not the kids who had nothing to do with the lending of the ribis. Okay, that wasn't such an easy daf. But okay, we'll stop here, and we finished early. Okay, we'll say some Tillim. Pegemo, yeah? Shir mizmal l'asaf, alim al tamilach, atach rosh al tishkad el, ki hinei yevechi yamon, v'sanachan masuraish.